So I thought I'd do a video about my last new vehicle. My last new vehicle was last two new vehicles I should say, was a 2016 but almost 2017 Chevy Malibu 2LT. It's just under their premium. Throwing out the trash. And I love the car, to be honest with you. The vehicle I had before that was a 2015 Ford Focus. And how I ended up with these two cars is I'm driving down the road and I pull over at a Napa dealer, and I'm gonna go in and get like the oil filter and oil and stuff for my 2000 or 2001 Eddie Bauer Edition Expedition. 5.4 liter air ride. A little bit of rust, but not too bad. I traded a 95 wrong. I traded a 96 Chevy 2500 truck for it. Stupidest decision I ever did. My God, I never had a problem with the truck. The truck was pretty nice overall, and I only paid like $1,700 for the truck with 140,000 miles on it, and it was in great shape. I mean, immaculate shape. It was a truck that was parked on a farm. You know, they used it every once in a while from time to time, and then they would take it on their trips to haul their horses to like another county for the fairground stuff and all that, and then they bring it back. I mean, they took immaculate care of this truck, and I loved it. When I seen that Eddie Bauer Edition Expedition, I was like, wow, this thing is loaded. It's nice. It has all these features. I didn't know all the ins and outs of the Focus like I do now, because I was, you know, a heavy diesel mechanic. I wasn't really so much into the gas stuff like I have been in the last few years. As of 2016 is when I really started getting into the gas stuff. Before that, it was mainly all diesel. So, I mean, I've been doing gas stuff for years, but not like that. So, I go back out to the truck from Napa after getting the oil and filter, and I sit down and I start it up, and all of a sudden I hear, boof! And something hitting my hood, and I get out, open the hood, spark plug blew out of the cylinder head, smacking the hood. So at the time I was a diesel mechanic working on big buses and stuff like that, all different kind of school buses, brand new, old, didn't matter what it was. I was really into the electrical system and the multiplexing systems. That was my job, to diagnose and fix not only that, but everything else. I was doing a lot of the Ford gasoline recall stuff on like the V10 and the repairs and stuff on the V10, even though I wasn't working at a Ford dealer at the time. Because of my certifications, the Ford dealer allowed me to do the work at the facility I worked at. I had a lot of experience doing it, especially when the manifold studs would break on the V10s, the transmissions would go out when you would couple a diesel transmission that's programmed to shift and do things at a different RPM than a gasoline engine. That's what Ford was doing. They were putting diesel transmissions on the backside of V10 gas motors that would shift, and they're propane injected, and they would shift at different RPMs, and it literally would end up blowing the transmission just because that transmission wasn't designed to be used in that manner. It was programmed differently. So I take that expedition down to the diesel shop, and I go get a kit from Napa to bore the cylinder heads and put time certs and stuff in them, and then put all new plugs and stuff in. So there were two cylinders that actually, one blew out completely and one was on the way out. I could grab the actual spark plug wire and I could move it, and I could feel the metal inside jarring back and forth. It was about to go as well. So I went through and did the two, I re-reamed number 8 cylinder, which is the hardest one, and then number 3, not number 8, number number 4 and number 5. Number 4 and number 5, or number 4 and number 6. I don't remember. I know it was number 4 because it was right at the firewall, and the other one was like 5 or 6. And I was like, man, this is such a crap job doing these blown out spark plugs on these engines, having to recut threads and put time certs in, and then I put a set of 100,000 mile plugs and literally put a little line of Loctite down in there and stuck all those plugs back in so they'd never come out again, and say good luck to the next guy taking the plugs out, because I ain't keeping this thing for the 100,000 mile life of these plugs. And that was the vehicle that set me off on the Focus, because I was driving one day and all of a sudden kaput, everything in the vehicle went out completely, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I'm trying to crank, but I can't crank, and won't even allow anything to happen. Like, it'll crank over, but it's nothing starting. Nothing at all is starting, and I couldn't figure out exactly what was going on. And you know, you're broke down on the side of the road in January, and it's ice everywhere. You're in an ice storm, and I got so upset. I had the thing towed to the dealer. You know, here I am, a mechanic, and can't even do my own work on the side of the road. Needless to say, after right before I junked it, I got it in the shop, and I was able to figure out what it was. On the driver's side of the Expeditions, the Expeditions in general, there's a little plastic single wire that mounts to the firewall. It's got a little plastic elbow off of it. It's just one wire, and it mounts to the firewall. And somebody never put that wire back where it went, so it laid on top of the valve cover and just sat there and rubbed through while you were driving, just jarring back and forth. And it's a radio suppression wire. It grounded out to the valve cover. It backfed that power through the circuit. It blew the gem module, and it blew the PCM. So there was my security. I needed 2 new keys. I needed a new security module. I needed a new PCM. Now we're talking like $1,400 worth of modules and programming and stuff. And I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. I didn't pay that for this. I traded a pretty much mint condition K2500 Chevy truck in for this thing. There's no way that I'm gonna put that kind of money in this thing. Just come get it. What do you give me for it? And the guy was like, $500-600. Come get it. Come get it from the dealer. I'll go buy a new car. I called up the Ford dealer and I said, what do you got that's like 0% right now? I'm not in a very, very good financial spot. So I ended up going with a Ford Focus SEL. I don't know if it was SEL or not. The guy says, oh yeah, I got you at 0% or whatever. Just come on down, drive the car. I got a nice one here for you. It's right up your alley. It's the same color and stuff you wanted. And so that's kind of funny because I didn't even specify a color. I just wanted a damn vehicle to get back and forth to work that's going to be pretty fuel efficient and not the biggest problem child on the road. You know, and me impulsively just buying this thing without doing my research is not like me at all. And here I am, Ford certified. I just didn't work on Ford cars at the time. I worked on all their heavy duty stuff, but never touched Ford cars. Never even had a reason to look up the information on Ford cars because my focus was on V10 gas, 6.7 Power Stroke, anything heavy duty, the old 6.0s, 6.4s, 7.3s. That's what I did. That's what I did at the shop. I didn't do any gas stuff. It just wasn't my thing. I worked in heavy duty stuff, not piddly stuff like that. And so I go show up at the dealer. 2 hours later, leaving with a car. Loved the car for about the first few days until I had a reason to get out on the road and get in stop and go traffic. And then once you get in stop and go traffic, that DPS6 transmission that jerking back and forth, sometimes wanting to pull you through the brakes as you're trying to stop. After a couple months of driving this thing, I was like, this thing's loud, this thing's annoying. This DPS6 trans is just constantly slipping and jerking back and forth all the time. What the hell's wrong with this thing? Well, you know, that's the characteristic of the car. It's made to be driven. You know, they make it for teenagers to beat the hell out of it, kind of like kind of thing. Trans will never go out, but you got to drive it. You can't just like drive it slow and stuff. I said, well, there's a lot of times where I'm in traffic out of Chicago. And they're like, yeah, unfortunately it's gonna do that. And I said, well, sometimes it feels unsafe. I'm hitting the brakes hard, and it's trying to jerk and pull me through the brakes. One time almost hit the car in front of me. And they're like, yeah, a lot of people are complaining about this right now, and let us get in the shop and inspect it. Well, they pulled in the shop, they inspected it. They said, we can't find anything wrong with it. There is like a recall on the clutch system in this automatic trans because it's a manual electronically controlled DPS6 trans. So there is some stuff coming out on the clutch system in here, that criteria for it to be replaced, but unfortunately yours doesn't meet that criteria. So I leave, go about my business. I come back. Every time I would come back to the dealer, as it would get worse, they would change the wording on the paperwork a little bit. And I didn't know that whenever you are trying to do a lemon law vehicle, all 3 times that you go to the dealer before you can try to enact a lemon law, the complaint needs to be wrote up identical. If the service writer writes, customer states shuttering in stop and go traffic, please advise, you need to have that same thing written 3 times. There can be no word changes. It needs to be written the same exact way 3 times. So when you take your vehicle in and you see the paperwork they put out, and it says, the first time you were there, it says transmission has shutter concern and stop and go traffic. The second time they say inspect for possible transmission failure or something. No. Please write it up as customer has shutter concern and stop and go traffic. Every time written up the same way for the same concern. Do not change the wording. Don't change anything. Write it up the same way. Because when you go to submit that to court or whatever it is to get to have them buy your vehicle back, or arbitration through the Better Business Bureau, you'll need that same documented 3 times the same way. And I didn't know that. So every time I'd go there, something would be changed up just a little bit. Finally got tired of dealing with this car after 6 or 7 times going back to the dealer for this transmission shutter and continually getting worse. And at the time, there's no recall where they could actually do something about it. I was like, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm done. I'm going to go down to the Chevy dealer. So I went down I went to St. Charles. The Chevy dealer in St. Charles. I forget what the name of it is. Not Jovic. No, it's not Jovic. Anyway, I went to the Chevy dealer in St. Charles, and they were, oh yeah, we'll give you full price for that car and everything else. And I think I only paid like $24 for it or something like that. And they did actually end up giving me like $16, but I was upside down. And I wanted one of those new Malibus, so I went and got a 2016 Malibu 2LT. First one on their lot. It was iridescent pearl, 2-liter turbocharged premium wheels, premium wheels. Loved the car, absolutely loved it. But it was a magnet for people's eyes and stuff out in public. People would look at it all the time and like, ooh, what kind of car is that? They come up and ask me all the time, this is the new Malibu. It was nice, but in hot days, the radio face would start to flicker. The number 10 on the preset screen would start to pulse really, really fast. Within 5,000 miles, I started seeing a water line in the headliner in the back, where it was leaking around the third eye brake light. And it was a problem with those early model Malibus. And then all of a sudden, the auxiliary port stopped working because there was a recall or a service bulletin out on the relay that controls the accessory power ports in the vehicle. Then I found a spot on the trunk that would constantly rub the water seal, and it was starting to rub a hole through it because it was where it was made in the factory. It's made that way. Then at like 15,000 miles, a trans service light popped up on the dash, and I take it back to the dealer, and I find out there's some kind of fault in the center console where the shifter moves back and forth, and the wires rub, and the whole assembly has to be replaced. It was just one thing after another. It was nonstop. I think I was back in the dealer with that car like 9 different times for different recalls and stuff, because it was the first model of that car. And eventually that car got stolen. 4 14-year-old girls out of Chicago stole that car one day when I left work. I was working at Cicero and 55 at the international dealer. And I just went Rush Enterprises right there, working on international trucks, Mack trucks, Peterbilts, all that stuff. So I leave work and I go across the street, and it's warming up right there at the BP, and I go inside to grab a Diet Pepsi. And I think at the time I smoked. I went to go in there to get a pack of cigarettes and a Diet Pepsi. 5 minutes later, I come out, my car's gone. My fob had fallen out of my sweater pocket. I had like one of them zip-up sweaters, kind of like what I'm wearing now, except zip-up. And whoever got in the car took off and crashed. It was pouring rain. It was cold out, and they crashed at over 80 mile an hour out towards Chinatown. And it knocked the 2 girls on the front seat out, and the 2 girls on the back seat fled, destroyed the car, snapped the lower control arms, busted up the body from front to back all the way down. It looked like somebody had run into them in the rear end. The police think somebody was chasing them, and the whole front end of another vehicle had crushed in the trunk into the back of like the back seats. The car was totaled. The engine was snapped from its mounts and pushed all the way over to the passenger side and then shoved further into the firewall. So that car is totaled. There was no way and after that I said no more. I'm not buying another brand new vehicle again. I'm done with all this shit. I'm done with all the brand new vehicle stuff, all the recalls, the problems. I'm done with it all. So I just went out and bought an old Lincoln Town Car and this old 01 Dodge Ram. Pay them off, fix them up however you want, be done with it. They running great. Here this thing's got 178,000 miles, and I got this thing running like it's brand new because I went through it. I can't say that it's been perfect. I went through it. I went through the motor, the transmission, the rear end, the wheels, the brakes, the bearings everywhere. It's cheaper for me to do that and get a vehicle on the road that I can go out, stick the key in and fire up and go, than it is for me to go have a $500, $600, $700 a month payment on a vehicle that I don't even own. I don't own for years. Technically, the bank owns. They can come get it whenever I mess up or whatever. So this way, financially, I'm stable, payment-wise. I've got 2 vehicles that can do more than what most people's cars on the roads can do. And if anything goes wrong with it, it's pennies to get them back on the road compared to a brand new vehicle. So, I don't think that I'll ever buy a brand new vehicle again. Sorry. This is my thoughts, guys. Thank you. Y'all be blessed.